Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Special Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, May 6, 2024. For the record, we are, conducting a hybrid meeting. We are in person and we have Zoom. So with that, Clerk Bakura, please call the roll.
Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Depot, Councilor Piazza, Councilor Talley, and Councilor Sheffield via Zoom.
Okay, thank you. New business or referrals. So tonight, we're talking about budget reviews. You had asked that Economic Development Planning come back and talk to you. So I have them both here. I have them together so they can talk about the budgets. And although they can't change the budget, they can make recommendations on where to move money from one to the other and to make cuts if we need to do that. But we can't change the overall bottom line of the budget that I submitted. Is that accurate-ish?
Yeah, the council will be the one that needs to make the actual physical change if there is any.
Correct. Since the budget that I submitted to you is the budget that you have in front of you. So any changes would have to be made by the council. They don't necessarily have to be made tonight. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you make notes, and then on the 13th, which is next Monday, we will have a committee of the whole, and we'll be talking about the budget again, hopefully before I submit it to you finally on the 20th. And with that, I'll kick off to you two, and you can decide who wants to speak first.
Okay. So we went back through our budgets together again. We had done it the first time, but went through the exercise of trying to simplify it for all of us. The sheet that you have in front of you that's just blank like this is the planning department, the planning portion of the Planning and Economic Development budget. And you can see on the bottom that the top, there are really no changes. It's all things that are kind of fixed in terms of personnel costs and insurance, and those are fixed for everybody. So on the bottom, under operating expenses, the year-to-date estimate, initially what was put in that section was basically what we had spent up until the point that we had submitted our budget. And this is for the planning section, the planning portion, but it was, it has changed a bit since. So the major changes, the only changes that I'm suggesting is for professional development. We've been following professional development for since 2021, when the legislature put into force a requirement that land use commissioners have to get training, which was a great change. It was really, it has really been, I've seen the benefits of it. What we didn't know was whether those were going to be all in person, whether they were going to be all Zoom. This was, obviously on the heels of COVID. And so what we're finding now is that the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association is taking the initiative to provide as many free programs and seminars as they can for credit. There are still some that charge. Every other year, there's the Connecticut Bar Association, which is the one, it's the one session, it's an all-day session. You can go in person. Usually, it used to always be in person. Last year, it was hybrid. It is, it's the one that I would strongly encourage all of the land use commissioners to go to, because it follows up on any new legislation. So But that's the one, that is one that does cost money, but that's next year. This, they do calendar year, so bear with me for a second on that. The calendar year for that, for 2024, will not be, it's the off year for them. But again, the APA in Connecticut has been doing a great job of putting together free programs and free sessions. So, and I send those out to the commissioners as I get them. So that's why we will be spending less on that. This also includes the Congress for New Urbanism conference that for this year that I go to every year. They present the cutting edge of stuff in planning. Utilities and fuel, estimated for the end of the year will be about $1,000. And that's kind of a miscellaneous catch-all of, it's not like what I put in my tank. It's sort of a catch-all of the things that we have to pay out proportionately. And I think this next one is where a lot of the confusion came last time. So this current budget through the end of this June had for contractual services $135,000. And some of that was $60,000 of that was in a reserve that was set aside specifically for the cost of house work. And so that is going toward the demolition of the Costa House, all of the abatement and removal of anything that needs to be, we know that that there's stuff that needs to be abated, regrading, and then using the rest of that. We estimate that will probably come in around somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000. The rest of that, the $60,000 that was allocated for that was put into that reserve line item, we would use to be able to do the sort of cleanup and also hopefully add some parking. We will be doing a full-scale plan on that, which is in the budget for next year. So that 135 is basically a 60, 60, and 15 breakdown. 60 for the upper Thames View Park, 60 for the lower, and then 15 for. I just blanked on what it's for. We have other projects like we're looking at the possibility of trying to move forward with getting easements across two pieces of property north of Groton Estates to move forward the Birch Plain Creek Trail. And so that's part of it. For that, we would need, in all likelihood, A2T2 surveys. So that's included in this coming year's budget. There's further work that needs to be done on Groton Estates, hopefully not much more. And it is moving forward. It's just, there's always the one more thing. So most of that money is for things like, it's contractual services, it's legal fees, it is renderers so that we can show images of what is being proposed with, for instance, changes to the zoning regulations. What could be allowed? What would it look like if we if we allowed buildings of 2 stories or 4 stories or 6 stories in some area? There was a clear call from the public wanting to see that. And then, so then the totals are reconfigured. And then for this year's proposed budget, the $205,000 is cut by the 15 that got moved to Sierra's budget. One of the things that was confusing is that we both work on projects and we work on them together, but often because of what we each do well, we do different pieces of it, but it's the same project. So we have now assigned those projects to one or the other of us, and the project funding is all under one or the other of us. And then it's just the recalculation of the totals.
Okay, Sierra, do you want to listen to both before, or do you want to look at Leslie's first?
I have some questions I'd like to ask before Sierra goes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Depot, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so a few things broadly first. When we have staff come on, do we have a discussion with them about how we expect them to do their budget, like department heads from your office? Is there like a policies and procedures of how we do budgeting, a way that we make it universal across departments, that everyone's kind of doing the same kind of thing? Because this to me is frustrating that this department, these 2 departments, their estimated year end was not what was put in here to present. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's confusion on their end, confusion on your end, but so is there some kind of onboarding process where, for example, a staff member who maybe has not had to prepare their own budget before now has to make a budget? Do we give them any resources on how you want them to do it? Because in my opinion, the department heads should be preparing their budgets the way you want them prepared.
So the way that we've been historically doing it is using the budgets from, if a new department comes in, they use the previous department head's budget as their starting spot. And then if there's questions, they'll come in. And then during the meetings with the mayor's office, if there's things that are missing from that budget, because there are certain criteria that we do require, for which you don't see here is a little bit more of the actual history. The budget from the previous year, the estimates as of the date they're putting their budget together, and then their projected estimates out for the current year with the new proposed budget. So there's not like a formal sit-down training, but if there are questions that come up, we sit through and we do emphasize on the things that are going into this book that the council will be asking about.
Okay, I think, over the last 7 years or 6.5 years I've been here, I think that's something that we maybe need to improve, because I think that there is a lack of clarity on how you want the budget prepared for you. And again, in my opinion, the budget should be prepared in the method that your office wants it, because you're the one that is in charge of making sure the budget is, put together correctly. So if, for example, a department head is misunderstanding how to allocate, or they're having trouble deciding where to put something, maybe a crash course, even maybe an annual refresher on the budget would be helpful, because it seems, and it's not just these 2 departments. In the past, there has been other departments where we'll have a new department head, or an old department head will use their budget from 5 years ago or whatever. It's not just one thing, but it seems that there could be a little more clarity that would help, 1, probably help you do your job, but 2, would help us not have to do this more than once. So
Yeah, we can sit down. The mayor and I have actually talked about doing a formalized sheet. It's just hard with all the different departments and the way that they do it to come up with one just formalized, but there is we can definitely look at the approach with the departments. But like I said, from my standpoint, those are the pieces that we make sure that's in the mayor, that gets presented with the mayor's budget, are the pieces that are going in here, that they are in that budget, and those are coming from the department heads.
Okay. And then just some clarifying questions, because you started talking about the estimated year end, and then you kind of went into the proposed budget, and you kind of mixed some things. So I just want to make sure that I have this clear. First, on utilities and fuel, you said it's a catch-all, things that you have to proportionally pay out. What does that mean?
There are things like, for instance, several departments pay a portion of what it costs to run the plotter over at Public Works because we all use it.
Okay.
Same thing with the copier. And to be honest, I don't think I know what most of them are. But they are, when we get things like that, that's the line item that it
Okay.
comes from.
And that's under utilities and fuel, you said? Or
No,
vehicle operations / supply is what you said that
Should-
was under.
vehicles and vehicle operations / supply, we moved to Sierra's budget because she will be using the vehicle that we're,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was reading the wrong line.
that's why it's zeroed out here.
Utilities and fuel is the one you were saying is like a catch-all, because
Yeah.
it's the utilities that you're using. Okay. And then, so you were going through, you started talking about the estimated year end. Originally, that number was 39,890. But now we've got it at 135,000. So,
There was a line item that was left off for $60,000 that was set aside last year specifically for the Costa House.
right, but that's not spent.
It is going to be spent.
Okay.
That's what, so we are going to encumber, we have the RFP that's just about ready to go out for the demolition of the Costa House, the abatement of everything that needs to be abated, getting rid of all of the debris, then regrading so that it's safe.
So that's
Fixing-
gonna, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So that's gonna be encumbered this year, the Costa House?
Yes.
That's 60,000. And then the lower Thames View, you said is also 60,000?
It's, no, so the 60,000, there's the 60,000 for the Costa House, 40 of which, 30 to 40 we expect will be just for the demolition and regrading, the sort of construction piece of it. And then the remaining 20,000, we are going to be sending out an RFP, well, be giving it to Ron in the next couple of days, to be able to get somebody who can at least do a preliminary, the preliminary design work and on the upper Costa, so we can figure out maybe how we can get some parking in, maybe get the connection to Griswold, Fort Griswold, do some of the smaller things that we want to do at this point. So getting the design work encumbered, and then the construction of that would be based on RFPs that would go out, and what the bids come back on would be in next year's budget.
Okay, so,
We're still on the upper Costa.
right, and you said there, so what's the 20,000 is for the design
Yes.
part? Okay. And then there's you said a second 60,000 was for the lower,
It was 60, 60, and 15.
right, so the second
Okay.
60,
So the second 60 is for, there are other things that we're doing, like the Birch Plain Creek, the, the other projects like Groton Estates, getting through all of the project, the legal stuff that we have to get through before we finalize that to bring to council. That's all ongoing.
Okay, so Birch Plain Creek on this project list you provided, which is lovely and color-coded and nice, doesn't have any money set aside for the Birch Plain Creek Trail.
Correct.
So what, are you saying that we have moved money from one of these other projects to that project?
Sorry, when she was asking you about the 60, I believe she's asking you about the estimated year and not the proposed budget. I think that's the confusion. Because the 135 was from the estimated years in, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
So
I
we
think
were
you guys
talking
are just
about-
speaking to two different.
right. And
Sorry.
that's what, I think that's what, during your presentation, that also happened. That's why I'm trying to clarify, because
Okay.
we started talking about the cost of house. You're gonna encumber 60,000 this year for the cost of house in demolition and design of what we do next. Then that next step is in next fiscal year, but the design is gonna be in this fiscal year.
Encumbered this
Correct.
fiscal year. That's what we're
So
hoping.
then there's another 60,000 that you said,
Right.
and then, but then you
So
started talking about
30,000 of
next
that is
year.
Birch Plain Creek,
That was for Bridge Street
and,
the resilience.
yeah. And so, and then the other 30 was between Bridge Street, that was the cross over where we've both been putting into that project this year. Now it's been moved to Sierras.
Okay. I still don't see, so you're saying that there's on this list, there's also 30K we're encumbering this year for Birch Plain Creek? Because that's not in this budget.
No, not for this current fiscal year that we're in. There would be no encumbrance for Bridge Plain Creek.
Okay, but so,
Sorry.
just talking about this fiscal year, what's encumbered this fiscal year. You said 60,000 to do with the upper cost of property, about 40 for demolition, 20-ish for design,
Right.
for whatever we're gonna do next. That will be encumbered this year. And then you said the next 60,000 while we're talking about this year's budget.
She switched over to proposed,
Okay,
and for this current year's fiscal budget, the remaining 60, about 25,955 of that went towards the resiliency capacity building, and then another 32,979 went towards the Bridge Street Gateway.
right. So that still, this number at the bottom still doesn't add up to 130.
Are you talking about the number that's at the bottom of this
Yep.
timeline? So these won't necessarily add up to the, budget because it only is the project. It doesn't factor in other fees that the budget does.
Okay. So when you were saying 60K, 60K, and 15K,
Yep.
those are not in the same budget year?
Those are in this 24. Okay.
The year that we are in, or the year
Yes,
that?
the year we are in.
Okay, so that second 60K is for what?
So we had asked for 30,000 for Birch Plain Creek to match any grants that we might get if we were going to do that project. That project got set aside because we just had other priorities. Another project that we do have is getting the RFP out for the ADA compliant walkway down, or ADA compliant ramp down to the bottom of the lower cost of property. That property we have a $70,000 grant that we are 75, I forgot exactly how much, that we are using for the design analysis to bring that drawings that we have that are at this point fairly schematic, up to the point where we can put those out to bid. That's one of the RFPs that is out now, and we will need to pay for the services and we know from,
Okay.
that grant was given to us before COVID, and we know it's going to cost more than the 70,000.
So that is in this fiscal year that we are
Correct.
currently in. Okay, but that's not on this list.
That's, yeah, that's probably right. I'm not, this is it's, right, it should be, it's not.
Okay. I'm trying not to be confused, but, so if that is this fiscal year, then shouldn't the line under planning for Thamesview Park lower, shouldn't that say $70,000? If you're saying that 70,000 is set aside for that for this fiscal year. What you just said is there's an RFP out, that if that goes through, that there's a grant that we have to match with $70,000 if we get the grant.
No, we have a grant for $70,000 to study the design for an ADA compliant structure that will get somebody from Thames Street to where we're going to put the docks.
Okay.
That study does not get us the drawings that we need. So the RFP is taking the sketches and schematic drawings that we have from previous responder, before I got here, previous responder to the RFP that went out for that project. It needs to get, the design that they did is at about a level of design development. It is not what you can build from.
Okay, so, but that
So
is
we
in
need
this fiscal
some-
year?
That's where, yes,
Okay, but it's not on this spreadsheet.
And just update this to show 75 here, and then
Yeah.
what is is that 60?
we don't know yet, but we're anticipating that the whole thing will cost about 100. So that's 70 from the grant and the 30 from what we asked for to be in this year's grant, in this year's budget. This current year's budget, which is there.
Okay,
Sorry, I am not trying to be confusing.
no, but but that's not on this spreadsheet, so where's that money coming from? Because this spreadsheet adds up to 128,934 for this fiscal year, right? And yeah, at the bottom. And so if you're telling me that this blank square that for Thamesview Park lower, that you have $30,000 set aside in that blank square, that brings that number at the bottom $30,000 higher. Where's that money coming from?
We do have the 30,000 set aside. It's half of the second 60. Sorry, I know that didn't.
But how do you have it set aside with these other numbers? That doesn't add up.
There's not sorry, I'm not trying to explain. The number, so you have the 70,000 for the grant, doesn't matter. But there's the additional
Right.
30,000 you're talking about, and that's not represented here.
So.
Or is it instead of one of these other numbers? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
It's, that's the number that's not.
It doesn't have the 30.
60. It's another 60. It's another 20. So if we have the 20,000, okay. Of the you get to about 130 with two 60s and a 15. If you have we have 60,000 for upper. We have 60,000 for lower, that's, I'm sorry, we have, really the way we've been looking at it over the course of the year is to look at we've got we have $60,000 that we were looking at that was split into 30 and 30. When we realized we weren't going to be doing the Birch Plain Creek, we looked at how we could use that money to move forward a similar project, which was the Lower Thames Street. So moving that project forward. So 30 from there, that's 90. Then another 30 is for Main Street. All right. The part of that will go to the 10 for the renderings that we're trying to get done. Also an RFP that will be going out and get encumbered for this year.
Okay, so do you see why that's, because you just said that you had 30 designated for Birch Plain Creek that you moved to Thamesview Lower. But there is neither 30, there's nothing in the line item for Birch Plain or Thamesview Lower, so we're just pulling $30,000 out of the air.
No, it's in the budget.
But it's not on this budget.
I think this may be more,
Is this not your actuals for like what your plan was this year?
No, this was because, you requested a timeline of projects and what was spent over, so this is what has been spent over the last couple of years, showing
Right.
what's come from planning, from economic development, and from grants for the projects.
Right, so, but for this fiscal year, 23-24, this is the year we're in, is this not what we've spent so far for these?
Towards those projects, yes.
Okay,
or we intend to encumber before the end of this year.
okay. So my question again is, the money, so the way you have it written here adds up to $128,934. You're saying that there's also $30,000 on the line item for Thamesview Park Lower. But that bumps that number $30,000 higher, which doesn't fit into your budget.
120.
That would basically set that as 158 when you have 135.
That makes more sense. So what we have for contractual services, and it includes all kinds of things, is basically the 135 on this sheet. Breaking it down, honestly, the pieces, they float a little bit within contractual services. They don't float beyond that. But when we need to when we need to pay something, we pay it, and we pay it out of that line item.
Okay. Understandable, because within all the department head budgets, you guys are allowed to move your money around from line item to line item to make it work. However, if you had either there's $30,000 from some imaginary place, or is there money on these other lines, that are here that we're not actually spending here, we're moving? Because otherwise, your budget for contractual services is $158,934, which doesn't add up with this budget that I have scribbled all over.
I'm missing something.
So, this 30 is not included in this number. If what you're
No,
saying
it's
is
okay.
right, then that would be 158. So maybe the 60 is actually supposed to be divided in between those two.
I think that. There's,
I know she's gonna try to figure out your question, but on the sake of time, did you want me to present while
Did you have any
she?
more questions on planning, or are you ready to move forward to EDC and then move back to planning?
Can I ask one quick question? So you said 60, 60, and 15. What's the 15 for?
15 is, the 15 is for things that that don't fall into either ZBA or under the planning portion of P and Z. They're more office-driven projects. The docks is a good example. Where, because these are divided by the blocks that we have to fill in, is it something that falls under planning and zoning? Is it something that falls under staff, office projects? Usually those come out of the mayor's office and are not, they may have something to do with the Planning and Zoning Commission, but they're more project-oriented as opposed to application-oriented.
Okay, so, but 60, 60, and
that's-
15 adds up to
So the-
135.
And the 15 is the budget for internal, in-office projects that have been, for the most part, directed to the planning office out of the mayor's office. For things like, again, Groton Heights is a good example, Groton Estates, where there are things where there are contractual projects or pieces of projects that don't come from either commission. So when I have to call our attorney to ask about where we stand on, the getting a release from a deed restriction on a piece of land so that we can move ahead with the Groton Estates project, those are the kinds of things that add up and cost money.
Okay, I still,
And I keep that as low as I can, but that's where the 15 is.
the numbers and the things that you're talking about don't make sense to me with the actuals on this sheet. And I don't understand how these numbers are gonna match at the end of the year. But, so, for example, what items are under resilience capacity building?
That's under my budget.
I'm sorry. what?
Well, I'm the project lead on that, so I can speak more to that when we get to my side of it.
Well, but that's designated on the planning budget.
Historically, the resiliency has been designated under planning, although economic development has been leading it. We had asked to switch it at a point in time, and for whatever reason, it wasn't, we couldn't do that cleanly at that time. So this is the first year where it will stop under planning, and then moving forward, it will be under economic development.
Okay, so, but this line item, this $25,955, what are a few things that are in that category?
So that was geared towards the capacity building, so we identified a number. So after we finished the community resiliency plan, we had all these recommendations and action items that we needed to flesh through. So that work was to help do that. We held multiple workshops reviewing stormwater management and urban heat island, and then started to develop projects based off of that information. And that's how we kind of got into the 5 corner stormwater assessment, as well as the rain garden installments and those partnerships. So it was kind of like a collective process of working internally and with outside organizations to really kind of flesh out the recommendations from the resiliency plan to actionable projects that can get funded and move forward.
Okay, so $25,955 either has or will be spent by the end of the year on those items in the planning budget. And then the Bridge Street Gateway, you have here $32,979. Does that include the installation that we had to delay?
That is all for that. So this is, this funding, about 17,979 of it was, towards supplies. They originally were intended to come out of the prior year, but through an administrative error, they had to come out in this fiscal year. Also, phase 1 of the tactical urbanism demonstration, which is the coordination with, street plans for that, leading up to that.
So is the installation of that going to be done in this fiscal year?
The installation is, no,
It's not.
the installation will be done next fiscal year.
So, and that's the $50,000 in your budget
Yes.
next year?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm good for now. Sorry.
Thank you. Any other questions on planning? Counselor Sheffield?
You're on mute.
Thank you, Mayor. Leslie, getting back to your budget on the contractual services, how much is being devoted to the cost of property for this year? Is it 60,000 this year and possibly 70 or somewhere thereabouts for next year?
It's 60,000 for this year, broken down as 30 to 40 for the demolition and removal of all of the debris from the house itself, and any, if there's small miscellaneous structures such as I don't think there is, but a shed, or got some concerns about how stone walls on that property are holding up, and what they're holding up. So it's for about, say, 30 to 40 for the demolition of the house and the removal of all the debris. Then it's another 20 for getting enough of a design so that we can try and get some other things done there that we've been wanting to get done, like designing a connection between Fort Griswold and the park, figuring out how to get some parking on the site, and getting an RFP out so that those funds will be encumbered this year to be able to get a design then. That will not be something tactile, something physical that you can touch. It will be the design for doing that.
Okay, so why wasn't that in the budget, the original budget itself, why wouldn't that be stipulated as a project to be, starting up for the next year, to let us know that there's 7,000 extra in, next year's budget? So we have an understanding of where that money will be going in advance. Could we have stipulated this project regarding the cost of property in this coming up budget? So we would have an idea, and along with last year having $60,000, I'm not aware of that money being stipulated for the cost of property last year.
It was. No, it was. That was,
That would be something I would like to have seen and maybe known about, so we have an idea of the total amount of this expenditure for the demolition and abatement and so forth of this property. So, that's kind of my concern, and as far as, okay, if this is enough and we're not definitively sure if that's going to be enough, and again, if we exhaust the amount that you're asking for, would you have to come back to us for more money?
there is money in this year's budget that was stipulated during budget season last year for the work that we're talking about doing now, that to be encumbered in this, during this year. So their decision to whether or not the Costa House was going to be demolished or there was going to be some other use was still in flux, but we knew we were going to be doing something. And we knew that this was a reasonable amount of money to ask for in order to be able to do one or the other. So that was last year. You all heard that and approved it, for which we're grateful because we are now moving forward with that project. That project also has been ongoing for a few years. We've done workshops out at the site with the public. We have also had obviously the RFP to go out. We don't know what the costs will be for sure. We're going off of estimates and what, obviously if it comes in at something exorbitant and is way more than anything that you've already approved, absolutely anything beyond the budget would have to come to you. I don't expect that to be the case.
Sorry. Any other questions?
Question for Sierra right quick. Is any of the economic development money going towards this Costa project as well?
No, sir.
Okay. Counselor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. For the Bridge Street Gateway, when the DOT came and presented to the mayor and council, will that affect that process? The whole thing with the bridge and then rerouting, detouring, so will that affect it and that will be delayed? Or you're gonna move forward somewhat with it?
Well, the delay that we just experienced with this project was in essence of that. We knew that we were able to get connected with the state's direct project team that was looking at what they were going to do on the bridge and then how that was actually going to affect the on and off ramps. So now we're in a position and we have a meeting actually on Wednesday to talk about how do we align the two? How do we allow the city of Groton to have its engagement process and talk about what's the impact to the local streets based off of what the state is planning or is proposing to do. So also, they are still in a preliminary design stage. So where we're at with this demonstration allows both locally and state for us to kind of test these potential improvements out with this tactical demonstration that then feeds to their final design for the on and off ramp and the shared use path, which then leads to their construction, which then leads for us to be able to identify, okay, where do we pick up on the improvements and at what point of the intersection, and then we can plan for the funding for that portion moving forward.
So that's what's in this budget, is that whole testing phase and working with them? And
Yes, that's
okay.
all these items lead up to that.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the planning budget? Okay. Sierra?
Okay, I'm trying to breeze through this for time, but if I'm talking too fast, please just let me know. So my budget is the budget with all the purple ink on it. So personal services, as mentioned earlier, all stayed the same. And so going down to operating expenses, I will go line by line, and I will go from estimated to proposed, but I will try to say that when I'm making those shifts so that we're all clear. So in regards to the office supplies, the estimated year end is $13,264.45. This line item was originally $5,200. The difference includes one, I needed to replace my tablet at the start of the year. That cost $1,978. It just randomly crashed and needed to be replaced. Also, we reallocated software and platforms from contractual services. That is a total amount of $6,940 from that, and then the remaining $4,346 is utilized for such things as a cell phone, copy machine. We have safety points and business cards. Moving from estimated to proposed, for that same line item, the budget is $320. This is to cover the cell phone expenses. I'm hoping to get internet on my tablet this year, as well as the copy machine, safety points, and of course the software and platforms. Are we good on that?
Yep, keep going.
For vehicle operations, so economic development is going to inherit building and zoning's 2009 Ford SUV. This is a new asset for economic development. Our original request, when we presented the proposals, were for $4,000. Since then, building and zoning did a number of repairs to the car. Has been able to test drive it and feel pretty comfortable. So we actually are knocking that request down to $3,000 for that line item. And sorry, I had just jumped into the proposed for that. Moving to professional, sorry.
No, it's okay. Can I, so the current year's
The current year
line
is,
for vehicle operations and supplies, what does that go towards?
that was all towards fuel. That was for, most of it was for either parking or mileage reimbursement
Okay.
on my current vehicle, on my personal vehicle. Any other questions for vehicle? Nope. All right, so for professional development, the estimate is now $4,283.54 for the estimated year spend. I am proposing for the next fiscal year $5,400. This includes memberships, the CNU conference that you heard Leslie reference, and also the increase is because I'm taking courses to become a certified economic developer, such things as credit analysis, how to put together projects, all of which will be beneficial, I think, to the city moving forward. So that addresses that increase. Not seeing any questions. So moving forward to materials and supplies, the estimated year end for that line item is $22,245.68. This line item was originally $7,000. The difference reflects the bid supplies for the Bridge Street Gateway in the amount of $15,853 cents. Once again, that amount we're trying to use from funding from the 2022 to 2023 year. We weren't allowed to do that, so we had to pull it from this year. The remaining of this current fiscal year's $6,445 is utilized for our planner programs, our community outreach, branded supplies, and some programming. For next fiscal year, we are proposing a budget line item of $8,500 to cover the planters, community outreach, and programming. But also last year we were able to do a pollinator path giveaway at City Day that was really it was received well, so we would like to bring that back. But this year at least try to provide a match to be able to offset another grant potentially that we may get for that. So for moving on to grant programs, the estimated year end spend is $8,749.62. The EDC has awarded 4 minor facade improvement grants this year, and we currently have one that we will be bringing to the council for recommended reimbursement of 25, which brings us to that 8. All right, now for contractual services. The estimated year-end spend is $22,521.25. The majority of that is being spent towards strategic communication and branding. And yes, and that is reflected. So, yes, and then the 22 is being used for strategic communications branding, and then that 15, the office the difference between the materials and supplies came from contractual services. Does that make sense?
For this fiscal year, right?
From this fiscal year, yes. Because there was originally about 40, I'm sorry, I don't actually remember the original proposed budget, but we thought we were gonna spend more on contractual service, but because of those supply items, we needed to pull from that figure there. I'm seeing heads nods where that makes sense, okay. So moving to the proposed budget, so we originally were asking for 47,500. This was increased to 62,500. This is reflecting a shift of 15,000 from the planning budget to economic development. This is all in an effort to keep projects with the project leads instead of having them branch out between two budgets. Just going over a few things, like under contractual services would be professional services, so tax increment financing. There's a growing interest in the use for this program. It is a relatively new program that we got back in 2019. This is a program that is administered both, the administration is split between the city and the town. There definitely needs to be more discussion exactly how that administration works and actually the rollout of this program as we start to get more interest in it. For resiliency, we completed the resiliency plan in 2022. As I mentioned earlier, we immediately went into this capacity building shift where we wanted to identify projects and really develop a project portfolio. So over this past year, we conducted those workshops with internal staff, brought in external partners to have those brainstorming sessions and kind of figure out what makes sense, what works, and things that the city can actually move forward at this time. That resulted in the 5 corner stormwater assessment. It is a partnership with the Nature Conservancy, and we were able to apply for and get awarded over $360K for that initiative to go to move forward. We were also successfully able to partner with the Eastern Conservation District to install a number of rain gardens throughout the community, actually on publicly owned land. So the first one is the Municipal building. We were able to get a grant from the Connecticut DEEP for about $17,500 to install rain gardens here. And then Eastern Connecticut, the Eastern Conservation District / BACWAC, the Baker Cove Watershed, because they help staff that organization, they had applied for a separate grant to do installations of rain gardens, and we're going to use that funding to do one rain garden at the firehouse on Benham Road and another one at Birch Plain Creek. So moving on to strategic communications. So at the beginning of this year, we did a soft launch of the Groton City History in the Making brand. And now you've kind of started seeing it incorporated in things like our websites and other elements throughout the community. So we still had the brand management staff on at that point in time because we are in the process of transferring all brand management over to the city staff. So that is kind of, this whole year has kind of been a transition year of getting everything that the staff needs to really manage the brand moving forward. And then that project would be brought to a close. We expect City Day of 2024 to be our official launch, and it will be the grand launch of this brand and officially now housed under the city staff. As far as the Bridge Street Gateway, you guys can notice on the project timeline, I'm just going to go back a little bit. So back in the fiscal year 20, kind of when I first started in fiscal year 19 to 20, we originally did an investment about $14,000 to work with BL to develop concept plans of a road diet for the Bridge Street intersection. We then used those plans to apply for an active transportation grant with the Department of Public Health. We received about $42,000 that was kind of broken out over years, where we were able to work with the state's preferred consultant, which was Street Plans, to not only host a number of community engagements to discuss complete street designs, but also look at the intersection of how complete streets can be applied to that, and then started this bigger conversation, obviously, about a road diet and the potentials of adding pedestrian improvements, cyclist improvements to that intersection, and how we would work with the state moving forward. We've last year, or through last year and this year, secured supplies for a tactical urbanism demonstration, which allows us to temporarily test a road improvement for a couple of months. We are able to shift things around to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then that feeds forward to a final design of what will actually be proposed and then constructed for the intersections. And that will be both benefiting that final construction, final design and construction, because of the nature of the intersection. Some of that would be the city of Groton, town of Groton side to handle local roads, whereas the state is handling the state's portion of the on and off ramp and the shared youth pass. Also, for Bridge Street Gateway, so we did supplies, we did we also awarded phase 1 of funding for the coordination of that and to continue to work with street plans. Those meetings are underway, and then proposing for this coming fiscal year for the $50K that will allow us to actually install the demonstration. This 50 is primarily looking at 90% of this work being completed by street plans, taking into consideration some capacity constraints that we have with some of our departments in order to put this on, but there will be ongoing coordination and figuring out the best way to support each other as we move forward. The other thing that is on here that we've been talking about is public art. We are moving forward with public art. We did receive a grant of about $3,000 from the Office of the Arts. We are working with the AIR Collaborative. That project has been delayed because of some staff shifts at AIR, but we've been able to use that time to identify our new coordinator and also bring on the Culture Coalition as a partner to move these initiatives forward. So we'll have an engage workshop, a shift workshop, but then there'll also be demonstration workshops that the city is moving forward to begin this discussion about actually having public art on public property. And I think that's about it for me.
Deputy Mayor Depot?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, thank you very much. That was very thorough and detailed. And I just want to comment too, I do love this, and I just want to point out for the 12 people that watch or anyone that pays attention, the number of grants, the amount of grant money that we get coming into your department, because your department does have high value projects, and especially this next year, if we can get all these projects off the ground, this amount of money from grants is very impressive. So I just want to point that out. So some of the things that you presented in your budget under office supplies and advertising are in the planning budget under a different line. Because you said regular recurring costs like copy machine or things that are,
That is divvied up over all budgets. So we all,
Right.
sorry.
so, but on your budget, it's in one line, and in your budget, it's in another line. But you guys are kind of a same department. So to me, to a resident, that's super confusing, why we would do that when your departments are, tied together. So I just want to encourage maybe to look at that for next budget, because to me, that's very confusing if you're saying one thing falls under a different line in your budget than in your budget.
So like everything should either be office supplies or like, I think it's categorized under utilities for you. Is that what you're?
I just think I think it fits under either one. because, you know, all of those things are kind of utilities or, you know, whatever. But for each of your departments, I feel like if your budget for your tablet and phone and the copier and whatever else is under office supplies and advertising, it should be under office supplies and advertising on your budget as well, not under utilities and supplies. So, that to me is a little bit confusing.
From a consistency point of view, it makes sense.
And again, to me, that goes back to the accounting department having guidelines like office supplies and advertising. These are all the things that should be under that. Professional development, these are all the things that should be under that. Maybe a document that guides so that all the department heads are being a little more consistent in that. Because the thing is, it does kind of fit under either one, depending on how you look at it. So instead of letting the department head decide, then you know that everyone's putting their cell phone on the same budget line. Everyone's putting their whatever on the same budget line, and you know what to expect when you're getting those budgets, because I feel like that can causes some confusion. Now, I also am really happy that we were able to fit in 5 minor facade improvement grants. That initiative kind of slowly took place, and now it's kind of, I feel like, in full effect. So that's really great that we have enough people that we're using that budget. And I think it's working as intended. I get comments on the facade of those places fairly regularly. But you said that 15,000 is moved for the proposed fiscal budget. We're moving 15K from planning and zoning to economic development. And your budget here, under total operating expenses, from what the printed version to your written version.
The 47.5 to 62.5?
Well, I'm looking, I mean, I guess that is where the number is, but I was doing the total operating expenses. The difference there is $14,000. It's $14,000 higher, but the planning budget is not $14,000 lower than the printed amount.
And also for the vehicle, I reduced that by $1,000. It was 4,000.
Right, but so we proposed a budget with the bottom line on planning and zoning was 390, 263. Bottom line on economic development was 215, 80. So your handwritten changes, the planning and zoning budget is $2,000 lower, but the economic development budget is $14,000 higher. Those don't add up.
Leslie, I think if you go back and look at the addition on your numbers are off.
My numbers are off.
Well, take a look at them. Do you have a calculator? I agree.
Adding this and this, you mean?
Well, if you just do this,
I think it's,
add these
this,
all together,
this.
that should come up with a number, but that number's different. And then once you add that number to that fixed number, you'll come up with a different bottom line number.
I just added it wrong.
Yeah, I did too. Did you come up with 210? 425? Okay, so we got an error carried forward. If you add that to that, you'll come up with another number, which I got was 373263, but I'll let you validate that.
373263?
Yes, ma'am. And now if you add that number to the new number, and they should.
So I guess I have another question. So if we correct that math, it still changes the mayor's proposed budget from these two departments. Does that matter?
Their original budgets do not change without the recommendations of the council.
So this means that when we approve the budget,
You're gonna have to recommend.
Amend.
Amend and transfer, reduce one and increase the other, correct?
Right.
if we want to approve it this way.
Correct, because what you represented was each department was approved by the mayor.
Right.
Now, and when we approve the budget, the number that we only approve the bottom line, correct? We don't approve each department's budget?
No, you actually do transfer between the or I shouldn't say transfer between, you do make the recommendations for each department, but it is just one resolution on the total amount based on the recommended changes through all the departments.
Okay,
But it is just one resolution. You don't vote on every department. You just make your proposals based on all the
the amended
departments.
budget if we were to change the number.
Right.
Okay,
If you remember last year, we moved numbers from one department. We lowered numbers in one department, we increased numbers in another department. There was no changes in the overall budget numbers. And that's what basically you'd be doing here.
okay,
Now, there was also some discussion, and we'll talk more about this overall budget next week, about reducing some other numbers. So,
okay.
I'm not looking for numbers for tonight.
No, I know.
But-
I don't have
okay.
them for you.
Well, I was gonna say, you probably ought to let this, my opinion is let this wash over you
Well-
as a council.
Can I ask?
You have the
Another
floor until you're done, then I'll recognize Counselor Sheffield.
Okay, so I just want to reiterate that this is frustrating to me, because we had already a meeting where we had both your budgets separately. It was confusing, and now it's still confusing.
Understood.
If I were a resident watching this discussion, I would have no idea what's happening with the money. So I like this list. It's very handy. I still am confused on the planning budget. It's like we were thinking of spending money here, but now the numbers still don't add up when I add them up for what you say you're gonna spend in this fiscal year. So part of my issue with the budget is also that last year when we approved the planning budget, we approved it with a whole big description of the charrette. And, you know, you pitched this whole thing and we approved the budget for that. And then that didn't happen, which I know is not necessarily your fault. That's, you know, we couldn't find the people to do the charrette, all of that. We've talked about this. But my issue is that we designated a budget. It didn't get used for what the proposed use was. And then now, when we're looking at the budget, it's still confusing what the money is going towards and not exactly clear. So then proposing for next year to increase that budget more for more nebulous, maybe things that are a little confusing, it feels confusing still. So that is kind of where I land on that. I feel like I do want to say, Sierra, you explained the exact amounts and why they moved from one to the other, and that is very helpful. The way you explained it, I don't feel confident about the way the planning budget is laid out. And for me personally, I want to feel like when I tell someone that I voted on this budget, I want to be able to say, yes, these are the projects lined up, this is what we're doing with that money, and not, I don't know, because for the last 2 years, we set aside money and then we didn't use it for that. So, like, to me, that's a terrible answer to give a resident. And that's always what I'm looking for is, how am I going to explain this budget that I voted yes on to a resident when last year we didn't use it for what we told them we were going to use it for? So, and in this climate where the town is raising taxes, you know, in my opinion, as the city, we should be endeavoring not to increase them if we can. And so I personally, across the whole budget, am looking for areas where we might be able to trim a little, because the budget is absolutely going up in the town significantly. We're not sure how much yet. And, you know, for the city residents, I would like to keep that to a minimum, because we can't do much about what the town does. but we can control our own budget. So that is all.
Okay. Counselor Sheffield, you have the floor.
Thank you. Sierra, going back to the tax incremental financing, which been 5 years, I guess, since we signed off on it. Will there be anything out of our budget that will be dealing with that issue with the town? Or is that something that wouldn't cost the city anything as far as trying to develop, businesses hopefully coming to Groton through the program?
So, what I currently have budgeted in, the next fiscal year is for just professional services, just to make sure that the administration work is kind of crystal clear on our side of exactly how the program moves forward. So it wouldn't necessarily be paying for a project from the TIF district, but just making sure the administration and all the back end parts of it are kind of fleshed out and everybody's on the same page. And that should be a small amount. We're not expecting to spend a whole lot on that.
Okay, so there isn't any extensive project to where, that economic development would have to fund, I guess, for any TIF projects that may come to us.
No, and the TIF account is its own, separate budget, general, I don't exactly know how to explain it, but it is its own thing outside of the economic development. So that fund has, I guess, been accumulating money over the last 5 years since it's been incorporated. And so I'm just seeking funding from economic development of the best way to spend that money once we start to receive applications in. Is that answering your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm clear with that.
Okay.
I think that's all for now. I think we're good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Counselor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. I think with all this, I can see how it's confusing, but I think I'd like to add that with all the work and so forth, that I do agree in reference to that we need, what falls underneath office supplies and so forth, so everybody's straight. I do agree with that. I feel like, I think part of it is presentation with Sierra and presentation with Leslie. I think it's a matter of, Leslie, I think, dives down deeper, and I think it just adds kind of to some of the facts we're trying to get to. And I totally get it, because I've been told many times I go over the river and through the woods before I get to my point. But I understand what you're saying. I think also, too, I don't think, we do have some answers for the residents, and what I'm hearing that you've said is that some of the things that were in place cost us, but then we didn't know if we were moving forward with it, and so forth, and so on, and so on, and so on. So it is in the picture. There is reasoning why some things haven't been done, but we as counselors need to be clear on why it was moved, why it hasn't been done, why have we shifted the money. I have heard some of those answers, so I think when we do answer to the residents, that we need to be clear that we all need to be on the same page, and that we're telling everybody the same answer. So if anybody comes to us, if somebody came to me, and I wasn't really sure, I'd either contact the mayor or contact the department head and say, this is what happened, so let me clarify if this is the actual facts, and then I would do that. So I just want to say that. So thank you for all your work, and I know it's been difficult, and hopefully this can be all cleared and voted on.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Counselor Sheffield, is that a new hand? Okay, never mind. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:20. Okay, we're gonna move.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra. Thank
Good
you,
night.
Leslie. gonna move straight into the mayor and council. For the record, it is 8:21. I'm gonna call the meeting of the mayor and council for Monday, May 6th to order. For the record, it is a hybrid meeting. We're in council chambers and we also have Councilor Sheffield on Zoom. Roll call, we have Councilor Piazza, Councilor Hartally, Councilor Sheffield, and Deputy Mayor Depot. With that, we'll salute the flag. Please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recognitions, awards, and memorials. Anyone from the council? Okay, I had Carolyn Wilson with Ledge-Light Health Department on, and through GASP, Groton Alliance for Substance Use Prevention, has a proclamation. It's basically National Prevention Week 2024. May 12th through 18th, 2024 marks Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration National Prevention Week. Since 1999, the Groton Alliance for Substance Use Prevention, GASP, has worked to reduce and prevent substance use among young people in Groton. GASP, a program of Ledge-Light Health District, is a community-based substance use prevention alliance guided by the Strategic Prevention Framework. GASP is currently funded by grants from the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and Southeastern Regional Action Council, with additional support from Ledge-Light Health District. By collaborating with businesses, healthcare professionals, parents, teens, school, police, military, youth, and health/social service agencies, the alliances continue to advance their mission to promote community wellness through evidence-based prevention and health program promotion strategies. This Prevention Week, we thank community stakeholders for their support and recognition as a local prevention council serving Groton for 25 years. So there's that. A couple other things. This is National Nurses Week. Okay. There you go. All right, we have a couple on the council in case you didn't notice. It is also Teachers Appreciation Week. And it is Municipal Clerks Week, and Clerk Bakura had to step away. So with that, receipt of citizens petitions. Receipt of citizens petitions is a portion of the council meeting where the council welcomes comments from citizens. To address the council, please sign a sheet on the table at the front of the meeting room. When you're recognized, please approach the podium. Clearly state your name and address. Each presentation should be limited to 5 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit emailed or written comments. Presentations should be related to matters pertinent to the city of Groton. City councilors will only ask questions in order to clarify the speaker's presentation and can respond during the response to citizens petition portion of the meeting. I have no one signed up. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, we will skip past response to citizens petitions comments. We'll go to approval of the minutes. I'll take a motion to approve the public hearing for the budget on minutes for April 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. I'll take a motion to approve the special committee of the whole meeting minutes for April 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Are there any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none,
Sorry, I just had a comment. So I know we were like making them brief before, but now we're having the comments. So
There-
I know at one time you said, Mayor Hedrick, that you had said that it's not verbatim, but I was just wondering, I looked specifically at my comments, and so I know when we were talking about in finance, and I had talked about office supplies, because we were looking at a lot of the people's office supplies, I had suggested lowering it by 2,000 since they average 16,000 something. So it really doesn't reflect that per se. I said it was just historically lesser cost, but I didn't know. I just want to make that clear that that's something I had suggested, but it wasn't in there. I know it's not verbatim,
Okay.
but I just want to,
So when, on the next week, on Monday, when we're actually looking at the budget again, if it is something that you want to change, then you can make that recommendation and bring it to the council.
okay.
And then the council will discuss it and debate. Deputy Mayor Depot.
Can I just add a comment to that? So this has come up now a couple of times.
Yeah,
Is there, maybe we can discuss with the clerk a method, like if there's something that someone says that they want in the minutes,
okay,
to maybe note that and say, I'd like that to be included in the minutes.
okay,
And then when the clerk is doing the minutes, she will
sure.
know to do that.
Do you, okay,
So then that way we're not looking at it afterwards.
no,
And like that thing I said was really important to me.
okay. Do you want to reach out to the clerk tomorrow with your comment on this?
What's the process on it? Because that would amend this, wouldn't it? Or how does that go? Or I'm just, what am I telling her
Well,
per se?
it would, well, hold on. So we're talking about the April
22nd.
Committee, the 22nd or the 15th?
The 22nd, when you just asked if there's any comments or,
I'm talking about the Committee of the Whole for April 15th.
oh, I apologize, my apologies. I thought you said 22nd.
I'm going in order,
I apologize.
okay? Any other comments or corrections to the minutes for Special Committee of the Whole, April 15th, 2024? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. All right, I'll take a motion for the mayor and council minutes of April 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Are there any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. All right, let me get to the 22nd. Sorry. Okay, I have those. I'll take a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for April 22nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, and Counselor Piazza, where in here, under finance?
Yes. On page
Okay.
3, underneath my name, Counselor Piazza.
Yep. So what would you like to add?
That I had suggested about decreasing the office supplies line item by 2,000 since historically was 16,000, and they were still asking for 20.
So Counselor Piazza recommended reducing which item?
The office supplies item, line item.
By how much?
Just 2,000.
Okay, do you want to leave it at that, or do you want to based on?
Well, I had
Because
already,
I'm amending the minutes even as we
right,
speak.
I think, well, I mean, I don't want to go verbatim. I mean, I did ask Ron about it, and he said, well, historically, that's what we did. But I just like, well, that's just historically, so we're talking, because we were hitting a lot of people for their office supplies. So if,
Understand.
right, so if we want to shave down some things, if they're only using 16,000 but still asking for 20, and there wasn't anything that he didn't indicate at any time that we're looking for that. So I'm just saying,
I hear your story.
Okay.
What am I amending the minutes? What do you want me to amend the minutes?
that I
So right now
suggested
have
to,
Counselor Piazza recommended reducing the office supply
Line-
item by
item.
$2,000.
correct, that's it, thank you.
Okay?
Yep, Thank
Are
you.
there any other corrections to these minutes? Counselor Sheffield?
Yes, I guess one slight correction on my statement on the Gold Star presentation.
Okay, what,
I know that I had concerns about the current state of the bridge, and, I was hoping construction would start sooner, but I also mentioned specifically the entrance from the Huntington Street throughway to the beginning of the bridge needs serious work, so I wanted to note that as well, and not just the entire bridge, but I know specifically I referenced to the beginning of the bridge right at the lip as you go on the bridge coming off Huntington Street.
so Counselor Sheffield stated concerns about the Huntington Street and then Huntington Street entrance?
On-ramp?
Which is it, entrance or on-ramp?
On-ramp onto the bridge?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, so what I have is, I'm adding Counselor Sheffield's stated concerns about Huntington Street on-ramp to the bridge. Okay? Deputy Mayor Depot.
Just on this note, again, I just want to draw attention to the fact that the minutes have never been verbatim, and I think we've only noticed these missing things that we think should be in the minutes because we had those few weeks due to staff limitations. We had a
Yep.
few weeks where the minutes were abbreviated to
Right.
just what we needed because we did not have staff time to do it. So I think it's probably a little more fair to staff if during a meeting, we want something in the minutes to express, please make sure that that is in the minutes, because otherwise now we're going back if we go back and
Right.
think of like the things that we wanted to say that aren't in the minutes, now the staff has to go back and amend these minutes. In my experience, the minutes aren't any more abbreviated than they ever have been. I think our attention got drawn to it because of those few weeks. So I think now we've noticed, like, oh, you know what, I actually do want this thing I said in the minutes. So I think as much as possible, in terms of, I'm always looking at, not,
Right.
utilizing staff time efficiently, and, I think it'd be better if we, during the meeting, if we want something in the minutes, just to say, please make sure to include my statement in the minutes.
Okay.
Or something to that
All right.
nature, so that the clerk can do
absolutely.
it ahead of time.
Yep, and we can discuss that next time we have a mayor and council. Actually, yeah, mayor and council. Any other corrections to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Yeah, that's right. Then motion carries. All right, communications and reports, Counselor Piazza,
Nothing to report, thank you.
Counselor Artali,
Nothing to report, thank you.
Counselor Sheffield,
I played some tennis over at Washington Park the other day, and I was looking at the landscaping work that was done, the back fences there where, the resident was referenced to having, privacy issues, and I saw the first layer of, trees that were cut, behind the fencing. I'm assuming maybe his fence adjacent to the park is a little bit lower than others. Others have a higher fence to where they have privacy. So, but I'm not sure what the next stage is, if more trees were going to be cut, if a new tennis court was going to get put together. But I saw where that stuff was, and I guess if you have a lower fence back of the tennis courts, then you would obviously have, you'll be exposed to all the noise and so forth. So I just, just studied it right there, and, hopefully we can find a way, common ground to hopefully alleviate that once we get a new courts get put together. That's all.
okay? Did you see the new net that we put up for privacy? Or were you, was it up there when you were there? Because we put a net up.
I didn't, okay, I didn't notice I was there last week, so I'm not sure if it got put up just recently, but I didn't recognize the net.
Okay. And this has also been referred to the the Parks and Rec Committee of the council. Okay, Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be fast. So on the 17th of April, I attended the ribbon cutting for the electric vehicle charger. Right now, we have chargers here and at Washington Park that are free of charge, still correct?
That is correct.
And I know we're trying to move in that direction with our vehicles, but just want to encourage people to utilize that service. At some point in the future, we will probably be upgrading them, and there will be a small fee associated with them, so use it while it's free. On on the 20th, I attended the Thresher and Veterans Memorial Service here. I just want to encourage people to follow the sub-vets on Facebook, or I don't know if they have an Instagram, but I know they're active on Facebook and they post their events. Several times during the year, they do ceremonies for different things. They're always very moving, and I think I say this every time, people who are in the service, as some of our counselors present and past have been, they sacrifice a lot of time and energy, and their families do, to serve our country, so we can sacrifice an afternoon to go to a ceremony to remember those people who, in this particular one, passed away in the Thresher disaster. So I just want to remind people, please follow them and participate when there's volunteer opportunities. They're a great community of veterans that do a lot of stuff for their community. On the 25th, I attended the mentor dinner over at the high school. Again, I know I've said this before. Our public school has a mentor program. If you have 30 minutes extra that you can spare once a week to spend time with a kiddo, either in elementary, middle, or high school, they have, I think there's 70-something pairs right now, and they have children who are waiting for mentors. They don't have enough mentors. In particular, men, I believe, they are lacking in. So if you, again, you don't have to be any special, amazing person, just an adult that they can meet with 30 minutes once a week to chat that's not a parent or a teacher. It's a really impactful program. And at the dinner, there's a lot of people who've had their mentee for years and years, and now they're mentees in high school, and they met them in elementary school or whatever. So it's a really cool program. So I just want to encourage people to be a part of it. You can go right to the Groton Public Schools website and check out the information for the mentor program. On the 26th, I volunteered for the food box distribution. Once again, if you need food, please contact the mayor's office, the clerk's office. If you can't get to the food box distribution, I deliver to residents in the city. I pack up my truck and drive around. And I always tell people, if you will eat the food, we will give you the food. There is no threshold or requirement. If you can use food, we will bring it to you. On Saturday, the 27th, I attended the Earth Day cleanup at the beach first thing in the morning, and then went over to Little League opening day, which is one of the best things of the year. And we march from here to the field, and then they have a ceremony and they start playing baseball, and it's a really fun event. It was postponed from the prior week, which worked out because it was a beautiful day on that Saturday. And then there was also an event for the drug take back. But that's always at the police station though, right?
Right.
So they did an event for bringing your pills and medications to the municipal building, and the police department was all out front. But I just want to encourage anyone, if you have used medication, please don't throw it in the trash. You can bring it. We have a disposal here in the police station, and you can dump it there, and they will dispose of it in a way that doesn't get into our landfills and poison pets and stuff in the trash. Or, yes, and please don't flush it down the toilet.
Do they have sharps?
They do,
Yeah.
they do.
Actually, that's a good question, because someone just asked me where they could dispose of sharps.
Here,
Okay. On the 28th, on Sunday, I attended the Workers' Memorial, which is on the 28th every year. I attended with the mayor, several town councilors. Our state reps were there as well. And it's to remember all the workers who have been killed due to workplace accidents or illnesses. And it's a really good reminder that, you know, we have a lot of safety things in place now with OSHA and all of that, but there are still incidences happening. And I thought someone towards the end mentioned that, you know, I'm not in a union, I'm not, you know, in that population, but if we who aren't in that population could stay off our phones while we're driving, you know, that impacts that population too, to reduce those workplace accidents on the highway, drive slow by workplaces, that kind of thing. There are things that we can do even if we're not part of that community necessarily, to focus on trying to help keep other humans safe as well. And then on the 30th, sorry, there's a lot of things. On the 30th, I attended a chamber luncheon with the governor came and spoke, and unfortunately, the mayor couldn't make it, but he did get a shout out from the governor, so that was nice. And he talked a lot about this area, Groton, New London, and just helping keep pushing along in terms of economic development and stuff like that. I know that we partner with New London, we communicate a lot with them, and it's especially with the bridge repair, we're doing even more of it. So I feel like that's ramped up in recent years, and he really encouraged that and talked about that regional teamwork at the luncheon. So it was interesting. And then that night I attended the DOT presentation on the bridge, which we got, it was pretty similar to the presentation that we got here, but I attended because there were a lot of questions from the public. So I wanted to see what people were focused on, and a lot of the questions were about the bike path and the walkway. And so I just wanted to communicate that the walkway project has been separated from the bridge project in terms of time, because the bridge project needs to be started, and there are some things delaying the walkway project part of it. So they're going to start working on the actual bridge before they work on the walkway, probably because the bridge needs to get started because it's in such disrepair. So for anyone wondering about the walkways, they are still on the project list. They're just staggered behind getting started on the actual bridge because of certain studies that need to be done, or all the things that lead up to the project. So those were the main questions at that presentation. So I just wanted to pass along that information, that a ton of our population is concerned about the walkway. And we all have talked about that in the past as well, that that's an important addition. But it's still getting done. It's just going to be a step behind so that they can start on the bridge. And then lastly, on the 2nd, I attended the National Day of Prayer in the auditorium. It is on the 2nd every year at noon in our auditorium here. There was really good attendance, and what they do is they have pastors from a bunch of different churches in the community, which I think is really cool, because our community involves everybody, workplaces, churches, everyone kind of comes together. And I just thought it was nice that they had, I think there was like 8 or 9 different pastors from different churches lined up. And it's really neat to see. So if that's something you're interested in, again, it's every May 2nd at noon in our auditorium. Groton Town also does a ceremony. I think theirs was at 4 p.m. this year. But ours, I believe, is always at the same time.
always the same time.
Yeah. And that is all.
Okay. And I attended most of those events with the exception of the Tuesday event and the day of prayer, because I was under the weather. But we've had a lot of great events going on here in the city. So let's talk about a couple future things. Tomorrow, part of Tasty Tuesday, Chick-fil-A will be here. On the 14th, Blazing Barbecue will be here. We have a blood drive on May 16th from 1 to 6 p.m. So it's by appointment, so please contact the Red Cross if you would like to give. We have a citywide yard sale on May the 18th with a rain date of the 19th. Beach passes are currently being sold now, so from 4 to 7:30 daily, and then on Saturday from 9 to 2. And then hydrant flushing has started. So for this week, May 6th to May 10th, these are not necessarily in the city, but just want to let people know, and I post this on Facebook, because if you start to get discolored water, just flush the water till you get clean water. But it's Fort Hill Road and Fort Hill area, Midway Oval, Pequannock Road to High Rock Road and all side streets, New London Road, Bel Air Drive, Groton Long Point Road, Mumford Cove, and South Road. And those are the ones for this week. Okay. Are there any committee referrals? Hearing none, we'll go to new business. Councilor Piazza, I want you to start with R-24-5-66. We're not going to read the first one.
Resolution R-24-5-66. Oh, I think I'm wrong.
It's on page 13.
Okay, I looked at 69. Therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council finally approve an amendment to ordinance number 215, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the city of Groton. I so move.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is the final reading of the amendment. In addition, on May the 20th, we will have a special Public Safety Committee meeting of the council. And so if you're interested in talking about this resolution and the streets that are currently impacted, and if you want to get a street added, then that's the meeting that you want to come to. So that's that. Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. All right, Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution R-24-5-69, therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council approve the refund of property taxes to EAN Holdings, LLC, DBA Enterprise Rent-A-Car, 1 Financial Plaza, Suite 1905, Hartford, Connecticut, in the amount of $1,990.07. I so move.
Second?
Okay, this specific item has not been discussed at a committee of the whole, but we've approved these and went through these before. This is where they were taxed and then the vehicles are no longer here, and so therefore there's the refund. Are there any questions or comments on this? There was some backup information in your packets. Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Okay, I'll take a motion to go into executive session to include the council, HR Director Linda Evadizian, and William Settlemeyer.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, hold on. Okay, we are in executive session. That is 8:50. Oh, wait. All in favor, say aye. Oh, no. Yeah.
Did you say that already?
I-
No. Now it's
I
All
second
in
it.
favor, say aye. Got a
Aye.
first and a second. Okay, so we are in executive session. Let me,
And there's action coming out of it, right?
and there, yes, there's actually The resolution is here, is attached in the agenda. Kimberly, I'm gonna need you to log off,
I mean, you can kick her out too.
'cause I'm going into, thank you.
Is she supposed to be a part of it?
Executive session?
No, I didn't think so.